South was the first streetcar suburb in Birmingham. And it was originally a town of its own called the town of Highland for just a couple of years. And in 1873, I believe, the city of Birmingham incorporated it into the city of Birmingham. And look around you and tell me what kind of a neighborhood this was designed to be. Commercial is what you're seeing. There is going to be a lot of residential, but this section right here is definitely the commercial center of this neighborhood, right? And so you said commercial. I've added residential. We'll see a little bit more of that. What sort of socioeconomic income would you just guess? What do you think? Yeah, I'd say it's for, as they called it, silk stocking. This was a silk stocking neighborhood. It's for upper end, high end shopping in this case, right? Somebody tell me what the kind of architecture is on the building over there, the commercial building there. Yeah, that's the Spanish Mission that we talked about the other day. And what tells you, what says to your eye that that's Spanish Mission? Stucco, what else? The terracotta tile roof, what else? Arch windows, love that. And so everything about that, I think, screams Spanish Mission to you. Is that a multi-bay commercial building or a single tenant commercial building? It's a multi-bay commercial building. Yeah, you can see the various different bays, storefronts that are kind of segmented off. And notice the decorative stone pieces around the central tower part. You see those stone pieces? Those are called coins. Quoins, coins. Not just like that, I always remember that. Quoins, those stone cores. They're decorative. Everything that's on there that's decorative makes it cost more, right? And so the more the building costs, the more the tenants are going to be selling higher end things. That would make sense, wouldn't it? And so remember we said this was the first automobile commercial complex in the state of Alabama. And it was fashioned after the Kansas City Plaza, right? So what? Kansas City Plaza, shopping center. And so what does that tell you about Birmingham's design acumen? What do you say, Anastasia? Are we old-fashioned or keeping up with the times, or what would you say? Anybody? Yeah, this is the most fashionable style in the 1920s. This wasn't built till the 1920s. So it's very, very fashionable. It's making a statement, isn't it? That Birmingham is cool, fashionable, high-end, and everything else. Let's look around to this building in front of you where the Pancake House is, and then over here to where the Sauce and Suds is. See these two buildings? You can see this one a little bit better. I don't know if you looked at the PowerPoint I sent you coming on down, but these are great examples of Art Deco architecture. Okay? Birmingham has a lot of Art Deco architecture. And when I was first in this, in the 1980s, I would take architects and developers around if they were interested in buying a building and start building and renovating it, things like that. And I was curious that several times, and they would be from out of town, and several times a couple of people said, Birmingham reminds me of Los Angeles. And at first I thought they were making fun of me, making fun of us, because that was in the 80s. Everyone made fun of us in the 1980s. And I thought, well, that's just rude, you know. And then the second time I asked him, why did you say that? He said, because It looks, because LA has so much Art Deco architecture that looks just like this. So I thought that was very interesting. What makes it Art Deco? I'm going to talk to you about that. Okay? Art Deco was popular in the 1920s and then in the 1940s. Not much, yeah, through the 1940s. Nothing much was built in the 1930s. Why would that be? Because of the Great Depression, right? So the 20s, and you get probably the most famous 1920s Art Deco is in Miami Beach, the Art Deco district down there. Very funky, swirly, sleek, fun, lots of fun, right? Before the crash. It wasn't so much fun after that. These are 1920s too. And what identifies Art Deco is that it's sleek and it's modern. It's going to get away from, remember all the curlicues we talked about, the gingerbread? We talked about with the Victorian era? That's gone. That's going to be gone. And look at these buildings. They're very sleek, aren't they? Very modern, sleek, sort of understated. So that's one thing. Another thing is that they have very vertical lines. Look at this building here. Can you tell that? We can walk up here a little bit. See those vertical lines? Where do you see vertical lines, Patrick?
On the right side and on what do you call it?
The pilasters. Those pilasters, kind of a flat column, you might say, sort of.
Are those pilasters? I don't know.
I call them pilasters, more or less. But you can see how vertical those lines are, right? Your eye just goes up and down. Art Deco also loves friezes, F-R-I-E-Z-E-S. And friezes are these flat etchings, sort of, in the stone that goes across the top. Turn around over here and look at Sauce and Suds. See above that? The sunburst frieze above that. Do you see that, Alyssa? Anastasia, you see that?
Oh, those are the decorative.
Yeah, the decorative pieces. And they're all across the front of that one. There's a lot of good ones on this building too, but it needs washing. You can't quite see them too. Yeah, they are. It's just harder to see them. Okay. The building where Eggaholic is was built in the late 1980s. The original building, which was the oldest one on the circle, burned by arson in the late 1980s. I happened to be working in that Art Deco building over there when it burned, and it was quite a terrible disaster, you can imagine. But the original building was called the Studio Arts Building. Studio Arts Building. And so the original Studio Arts Building was two-story. It was round on the facade. And what does the name suggest was in the building? Art of some kind, happened to be art studios. And on the second floor were mainly women artists who used the studios to paint. What does that suggest to you about Birmingham in the early 1900s? Just that alone. Yeah, it had that. It had an art scene, and also women who were artists suggest that. So we know we're in the Deep South. We know we're in a very industrial city. We know we're in a very male-dominated city by the nature of the work here. But there are other things going on, and Birmingham is creating spaces for that, I'd say. Okay? Down just from the Studio Arts Building, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories now that go with 5 Points South that suggest other things to you maybe about 5 Points South. See this series, this streetscape of one-story buildings, right? Start with Birmingham, Apothecary, and going down, right? One thing I want to mention to you, as we talked about the other day, is that you typically put your best buildings in your face, right? Such as these on the corners, and then your less fabulous buildings. Those are all 1920s. And so think about this from a preservation point of view. Those buildings, those 1920s, one-story, pretty not so decorative 1920s buildings, they are the glue that hold these others together. So that if you start taking out the 1920s, the less dramatic buildings, what you're going to end up with is snaggletooth smile, right? Yeah, oh, but we kept the good ones. Yeah, but they're just there. Where's the glue? Where's the fabric? What else was here, right? Yeah, it absolutely damages the integrity of the whole, right? And that's what you're after when you're after a district. You're going to always have far more standard buildings, houses, commercial buildings, whatever it is, than the standard ones. So I'm going to come back to one of those buildings in just a second. Let's talk about the fountain. So the fountain was built in the late 1980s, okay? Right in the circle. The city of Birmingham had picked 5 Points South as its first commercial revitalization district. Didn't want to call it historic preservation because people go, that's way too liberal. I don't know about that. Un-American. It's too, I don't know. Government's going to make us do something. So they called it Commercial Revitalization District. And this was the first one. This was, the commercial revitalization districts were a plan by Mayor David Vann, who was a white liberal, and he was the mastermind of a lot of this planning. He's not going to get a second term because of a killing, a murder, police on a black woman. When that happened, he was very popular too, but when that happened, it opened the door for our first black mayor, who was Richard Arrington, who is going to be elected 4 times, okay? Richard Arrington was on the city council. He and Mayor Vann were very close. They were partners. And so Vann had the vision and the plan, and Richard Arrington implemented a lot of it, okay? So that's just kind of interesting. So one of the ideas in revitalizing 5 Points South was to build a fountain, okay? And there happened to be a world-famous sculptor from Birmingham named Frank Fleming. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. World-famous, big time. If you ever go out to Aldridge Gardens in Hoover, any of you have been out there? If you go out there, you'll see all these cute, wonderful bronze, I guess, iron ducks and pigs and little chicklets and turtles and all. And every time I go out there, one of these days I'll learn, I think, I want to buy one of those because I sell them. And I think, I can afford a small one, and I'll go in there and it'll be about $5,000 for a little bitty, maybe more, I don't know, but I'm always like, okay, I need to remember this. I can't afford a small one. So Frank Fleming was commissioned by the city to design the fountain, okay? And his design was this. What do you see here? Well, let me put it this way. His design was published in the Birmingham News, and all hell broke loose. It was extremely controversial. Why do you think that was? The goat? Why would a goat be controversial? So, this being a very religious part of the country, to say the least, there are a lot of other religious parts of the country, but this was definitely one. And they said that Frank Fleming's goats and other animals here were pagan, Satan, and they weren't having it. And so what happened was that a coalition of churches got together and they stopped the construction of the fountain. Okay? It sat without being built for a couple of years, as I recall it, at least. And then finally, because of a lot of communication between the city, the churches, the residents, took a while. It takes a while in city planning, city revitalization. They hung with it, and eventually the sides came together. The churches felt more comfortable, they felt okay, and the fountain was built. And it's very popular. Okay, now, let's turn around and look at this church. What do you see? Any ideas about its design? We really hadn't gone too much into this. So it's got some Spanish mission suggestions about it. I think I would call it Renaissance revival.
Okay.
It's a very highly articulated design, right? We call this high style.
When it's more ornate, when it's more decorated like that?
Not so much decorated, but just finely detailed, whatever it is you're trying to do.
Okay.
Right? Italian Renaissance, maybe? Yeah, I think there's that in there, for sure. Uh-huh. And so this is a very, very highly articulated, high design of a church. Very prominent, the most prominent building here, I believe, right? It's got that huge dome back there, look at that. With terracotta tile, it's got projecting towers, it's got all kinds of things. You're a little bit in awe of its architecture, right? And who went to church there were well-heeled people, white people, if I need to repeat that again, but white people, until much later. It was built in the 1920s, maybe like 19-teens, 1920s. Okay, so by the 1970s, this whole area, 5 Points South, was not pleasant. I can remember it. It had a lot of motorcycle gangs, and they weren't cool. They were not cool. They were scary. You know, it was dangerous. It was dirty. It was run down. You just went through it to get somewhere else, right? Okay, so starting in the 1970s, 1980s, which year we're talking about, 1990s, and still now today, this church, the Highlands United Methodist Church, had a primary mission. And its primary mission as a Christian organization was to feed the poor, right? And so they began a program where they gave out, still give out, free lunches, okay? And so that's going to perhaps draw homeless people to here, right? Okay, should they do that? What do you think? What do you say, Alyssa? Yeah, well, that's their mission. Of course they have a right to do that. That's their absolute mission. They don't have to apologize to anybody, right? Okay. Well, look across the street over there. You see where it says Highlands Bar and Grill? See where it says Highlands Bar and Grill? Well, same period of time, late 1980s. Same thing. This is happening. Oh my God, Satan's coming, right? They're feeding the homeless. Oh my God, who do they think they are drawing homeless people here? We're trying to revitalize. And the man that owns the Art Technical building and the Spanish store, a wonderful man named Bob Moody, who I worked for, fantastic person. He was a wonderful artist and interior architect. He recruited Frank Stitt, who is famous around these parts. Frank Stitt to open a very high-end restaurant in that space. Bob Moody was a genius with interior design. Frank Stitt was Paris-trained, brilliant chef. wow, if we can get that, something may happen, right? So they go in there, and in order to, and Bob Moody owns the building. Tenants often pay a portion of their profits as rent, right? So Bob Moody wants him to do well, for sure, needs him to do well. Frank Stitt, this is his first big chance. Frank Stitt wants to make it work, right? His reputation, his whole career's on the line here. And in order for that to happen, Frank Stitt, this is going to be a very expensive restaurant. He's got to get people from over the mountain, so to speak, Mountain Brook, Redmont. He's got to get those people. They haven't set foot in the city of Birmingham since the 1960s. They haven't been down here in 20 years and don't want to. They think it's scary and awful and diseased and rotten, and they don't want to be here. Somehow Frank Stitt's got to get those people down to this restaurant. They're the ones that can afford it. And they've got to feel safe because they've got options. They've got country clubs. They've got options. Oh, here you've got the church feeding the homeless. Sometimes urinating in the doorways overnight, right? And you've got Frank Stitt and Bob Moody trying to have a venue where people with all the choices they want will choose this, right? Do they have a right to that? Does Frank Stitt and Bob Moody have a right to bring that kind of a restaurant down here? Yes. Do they have a right to charge exquisite prices? They do. Do they have a right to cater to well-to-do people? Yes, they do. And so here you got these two mandates. They both have absolute right to do what they're doing.
To the church and to the Spanish building.
Behind restaurant.
Yes.
And they're going to clash. And boy, do they. They both have a problem with the other one, right? They're saying, hey, you know, we're doing our mission. I don't know what to say about your thing. They tried to get ordinances passed to prohibit, to outlaw panhandling, begging, things like that. They tried to, the restaurant said, please, just build a fence around it. Do something. The church said, no, that's not the way we roll. We're not going to do that. And here's the bottom line, is that for 30 years, 35, whatever it is, years, they have danced that dance successfully. They both do what they do. And for me, Birmingham has shown how you can do this. You can do this, even though they think everybody would be better off without the other, right? So I want to tell you, the last story I was going to tell you right here was that, I don't know, maybe the Satan warriors were right. I don't know. Because here's what happened. In one of these 1920 storefronts, one of these right here at the beginning, in the late 1970s, there was a boutique there. And it was called Miss Sid's. Okay? Well, Ms. Sid was transgender. This is the middle 1970s. Birmingham, Alabama, right? It was no secret that Ms. Sid was transgender. She had a boutique right there. And she was in business. And she had customers. And people loved her boutique. I went down there myself. I was a student at Sanford, and everybody knew about it. And keep in mind that in the 1970s, nobody had ever heard of anybody called a transgender. It was very much in its infancy. There had been one, maybe two, in the world before Miss Sid. I think one in the world before Miss Sid, right? So that's very unusual. One of the things you couldn't imagine happening, right?
It would be like if an alien came down.
It'd be like an alien. And so I went down there because I couldn't help it, right? And I went into the boutique, and Miss Sid herself opened the door, and I was just gorgeous, stunning, big woman, stunning. And of course, I looked around the boutique like I was interested in the boutique, but mostly I wanted to see her, right? That's in the 1970s in Birmingham, Alabama, right? So, I don't know, 5 points south. Sort of got it going on. It's got its issues, of course, its pushes and pulls, but it's got a lot of things going on. Unfortunately, I think 1977, 78, Miss Sid was murdered in Vestavia at a motel. Very sad story. And the man who killed her said, well, his defense was, well, you'd have done it too if some freak like that came at you, basically his defense. And he was acquitted. Yeah. She has a cult following a little bit. You can find her online, people that are really interested in it. You can find it. But she was a semi-professional basketball player or football player, professional athlete. So she was a big person. And the owner of the motel came out with a shotgun, and of course, I don't know exactly what happened, but he shot and killed her. Yeah. And there was a lot of uproar about it. Okay, so I'm trying to set a little tone for 5 Points South. What's going on here? And the last thing I'll mention before we walk a little bit is, do you see the gray building down there? Through there, peeking through there. That was the Christian Science Church building that I think I showed you in the... And it was the first or second Christian Science church in the state. The first one was Mobile, I believe. So, I don't know, lots of diversity in my mind going on here, from its inception right through maybe to now. 20s, yeah. Most of what you see here is 20s, late teens, 20s. Okay, so let's walk down here and see some other things. Well, let's go. I think we've got time to cross the street, and let's look a little bit closer at this Art Deco building. It's a big building that goes back. You can see it close up, and some other things down here. I want to look in a little bit. Can you see the friezes up there? The etchings, carvings, whatever you want to call it. You see it up there, everybody? Very Art Deco, very sleek, wonderful building.
Art Deco.
Yeah, the whole building is, but
yeah.
when you see that, that's telling you Art Deco, especially if it's limestone.
Is it a church?
No, commercial building. Yeah, she asked if it were a church.
You said Art Deco often features limestone?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this building is very much, has much of its integrity. Why do I say that?
Has its original architectural traits intact.
Like what?
The material.
He said the friezes.
Limestone. The material is probably.
Yeah,
or
the limestone, definitely. What else?
The vertical lines and high lines too.
Yeah. The windows, see the windows?
Windows
Those are original
those are
windows.
not-
1/1,
Those are-
wood.
yeah.
See those? Look at the big archway. You can very much read that, right? It's a 2-story archway, very prominent. Yeah, I got to work in that building for a couple of years. So. But yeah, these are pilasters. I'll call them pilasters. Let's just, now let's look across the street and see the building where Jim and Nick's is. Yeah? That's a English tutor with the
Gable.
with the gables, yeah, with the gables, all kinds
It
of.
looks like there's a bit of there's a bit of Spanish mission with the texture.
Well, I see why you say that,
Yeah.
but Tudor also really likes terracotta tile.
They do. Okay.
So I see why you'd say that, but
Yeah.
overwhelmingly it's Tudor. It's got those fancy urns at the top of those columns. You see that? Those limestone urns. It's a very fancy building. And then right next to it with the green glass. You see that building? Yeah. Well, that was built as the Five Points South Theater. So that was the marquee in front. And that's very much in that 1920s and 40s Art Deco style. Art Deco also likes Carrara glass, colored glass. A lot of times you see it black, but you can see it here in aqua. And then the sleek vertical lines. It's very modern, isn't it? It's also fun. So that was originally a theater. And somebody just tell me a decorative feature on this building with Rocky's Pizza. It's a two-story brown brick building with
I forgot what you call the slope on the top or the ribbon or whatever.
the cap.
The cap, that's where those arches.
Yeah,
Are
it's
those
got,
cartouches?
no, those are just decorative arch features.
Okay.
A row of them all across just under the roof line, that's what I would say. Something like that, right? And that building has had some renovation, but overall I'd say it's definitely retained its integrity, right? Aluminum windows, notwithstanding. But the storefronts, intact, and so on. You see the building next to it, it's got a limestone cornice. You see that? Above the storefronts, above the transom windows. You see that limestone piece that goes all the way across? It's a cornice, yeah. You often see it at the very tops of buildings, but you can see them other places. So that's a limestone cornice. Okay, so let's walk down here a little bit. Tell me what you see here with the next couple of buildings here. What do you see here with the Crab Barrack and the UPS store? Would you think these would be historic or not historic? What do you say? What's the fundamental bottom line to begin to think about a historic building? 50 years. Does that look 50 years? Yeah? No. No. Maybe underneath there, but when I stand here, I do not see 50-year-old brick, 50-year-old storefront, 50-year-old anything. It has been completely refaced with brick. Okay? Do you see that? I can see where you think it might. That's a good question. I don't think it was refaced all that well.
Yeah, doesn't look like.
Yeah. But no, and you know how you would find out if you're not sure what's happening?
City plan?
No. Walk around the back. And you probably can tell whether it's an old building back there or a new building. See what? Because it'll be either older brick or it'll be wood or it'll be something that's telling you, oh, that's older. See what I mean?
Yeah.
What about the UPS store? What's the rule again? What do you think? When is 50 years old now? What's 50 years ago now? 50? 19 what? 1976 is now the 50-year cutoff point, and I believe that building was built before that. right in there somewhere. Late 60s, early 70s. So it may not be all that interesting. It may not fit at all with the original design of this, at all. But if it's 50 years old and it's in with a district, you would consider that a historic part of the district. Okay? So don't be put off by a building it's not cute at all. And this is a great memory, okay? And again, if you want to find out exactly, you can look at newspapers, you can look at city directories, some things we're going to look at next week, okay? By the way, graduate students, got two. The buildings on 10th Avenue are the 700 block, where you've got 4 buildings I wanted you to research. It's 700 block, just across the street from the Amico station. This building here is called the Terrace Court Apartments. It was built in 1906. It was the first skyscraper apartment building built in Birmingham. Okay? So in that way, it's very much a landmark in that way, right? In the early part of the century, 1910s, 1920s, everything is about the automobile. We love the automobile. And we just love it. So you're going to see so many 1910s and 1920s apartments, buildings being built that are first rate, that are catering largely to salesmen, people that sell goods, and they travel to do it. Traveling salesmen is what I'm trying to say. And they're sort of rock stars, you know. Gosh, get to work in your car, and that's cool. Who doesn't like that, right? Let's go a little bit up here, and you can see what I mean by first rate. First of all, look at this building and tell me what form it takes. What shape does it have? It's a U shape. It's exactly what it is. It's a U-shaped building. And that's kind of fun when you see buildings that have an obvious shape or form about them. Sometimes you'll see T-shaped houses or U-shapes or different things. So tell me something about this building that says this is a highly stylized building. Cornice? You see the cornice up there that he's talking about? It's got one at the very top, and then it's got one beneath the top floor windows. Do you see that? And at least the one beneath the first floor windows is decorated by, those are called Greek keys. Do you know that shape? Those Greek keys? And then look at you see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, look at this entranceway. Wow. What stands out to you about this entranceway? What do you say, Anastasia? What stands out to you about this entranceway that's fancy, for lack of a better word? Okay, so the portico, I think you'd say. So it's got a very elaborate portico, doesn't it? With Greek keys, it's got double columns, with fluted bottoms on the columns. It's got that arch at the top in the middle with all kinds of interesting stuff. That costs a lot of money. Very much costly. Those are, you talking about under the Greek keys? Yeah. Those are dentals under there. They're little baby dentals. I think under the Greek keys there.
Yeah. What is a Greek key?
Goes like this.
Ah, okay. Yeah, okay. I see.
And it's even got a cartouche. It's probably got two of them, but see that decorative piece at the top of that rail, on that rail? That's a cartouche, that decorative piece. It's just for decoration. You see that? See what I'm talking about? Yeah. And the holes and all that stuff costs a lot of money, and it's decorative and it's designed to appeal to you. If you've got choices, how about this one, right? And there are lots of other decorative. What about the marble? Look at all that marble. That's expensive. That's very expensive, right? These railings on each side of the stairs, those are big and sturdy and elaborate and got holes in them, all kinds of stuff. Not just plain. Okay? It's also got space for commercial on the first floor and all kinds of stuff. Okay. Now I want to look at this building where the Japanese sushi's going to come in. I thought it had already gone in. Look at that building. Is that pretty? It's awesome. Any idea what kind of design you might call that? I don't expect you to. I can see why you'd say that, and I can see why you'd say Spanish. But again, it's in a Renaissance. It's got a Renaissance revival, and that's going to include some of those elements. Yeah, I'd say that. And can you see the different colors? It's got blues, and if you get up close, we can get up a little closer. The beautiful colors and all of that artwork up there. So all of that decoration up there is terracotta. Yeah. And it's just baked clay. And the way they do with the colors is that the colors, the pigment, is baked right into the clay. It's not painted. So it's a permanent pigment. And this takes a whole bunch of artisan labor, doesn't it? That didn't cost much back then. There were no minimum wage laws or anything like that. No OSHA, anything like that. I don't know how you'd replicate a building with that kind of meticulousness now. I mean, you could, but it'd be very, very expensive. Okay? And then just for the sake of it, the next building next to it, those are 1960s, 1970s buildings. And I like them. I think they're fun and modern. And they're distinctly a different era than the rest of it. They're not trying to be 1920s, 1940s. They're trying to be modern 60s and 70s, and they're proud of it too. So what's happening in Birmingham right in this area in the 1960s and 70s?
Yeah, the hoses and the, well, civil
60s and 70s, late 60s and 70s. That's over in 63 basically. But when these were built, what's happening right here? What do you say, Alyssa? Right here, right where we came from. The university that ate Birmingham.
Ah, okay.
So Birmingham is definitely transitioning from the civil rights, from U.S. iron and steel stuff to something real different. UAB, white collar, this and that and the other. Does that make sense? Okay, just look down there, and we won't walk down there, but you can see another beautiful limestone church over here. That's a Presbyterian church. If you stay down Highland, you'll see the two Jewish synagogues just after that. And you can see maybe that turret sticking up, not turret, but a, turret sticking up on that house. That's one of the best, Queen Anne.
Where's the turret? Or the...
Sticking up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Okay.
That's one of the best Queen Anne houses left in the city, okay? Just down from that house is another high-style Victorian-era house, and one of the most famous people who lived there was a woman named Patty Ruffner Jacobs, and she was the leading suffragist in the state of Alabama. So what does that tell you about Alabama?
There's several prominent women in the state.
Well, it tells you we had a
Social.
suffrage movement. It wasn't as prominent as somebody else's maybe, but we had one, and she was well heeled, which isn't surprising. Most,
From the upper class.
yeah, most reformers, women reformers, are from the class that is well educated, and society doesn't allow them to work, so they have the time, they have the education, and the leisure to do those things, right? Okay, let's talk about Chick-fil-A. This is a landmark place here. Birmingham, this is the only Chick-fil-A in the country that is built without a drive-through. And why? Because the City of Birmingham's Design Review Committee that reviews whatever's going to go on in here and other places said no to drive-through. Now that was bold. That was real bold. Why did they say no? What do you think? This was in the 90s, I guess, maybe early 2000s. Well, they're trying to make this a walking community. They're trying to make it, where people want to come, walk around. If you had a drive-through there, they said, and I think they were right, it would interfere absolutely and forever with that. And so they turned down the plans. Well, we're talking about Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A gets what Chick-fil-A wants. Same with McDonald's. And they said, well, they came again. They turned them down again. Extraordinary. Because what Chick-fil-A wants, what McDonald's wants, what Wendy's wants, they get. Okay? That's it. Or they say, well, we'll just go somewhere else. If you're a poor city, Birmingham's a poor city, if you are a poor place, you'll say yes to whatever it is they say. We're going to build you a purple box and call it McDonald's, and you're going to love it. And they almost have to say yes, right? And so it's very bold for Birmingham to refuse that. They say, no, we'll let you be here, but we're not going to give you the trial. And it stood at a stalemate for several years, a couple of years at least. And finally, the city of Birmingham prevailed. And it's one of their most popular Chick-fil-A's in the Southeast. So that suggests to you, if you work hard enough at it, you're committed enough to it, sometimes you can prevail. Sometimes you can't, but sometimes you can.